Here's an overview of the mySelfQuantifier spreadsheets that can summarize the amount of time you spend in projects per day, week, or other interval of interest. In a previous recording, I showed that each row in the log sheet has a hierarchically specified project that you enter, such as the projects here. In mySelfQuantifier, project paths look a lot like Unix path names. The project should normally reflect the project structure of personal project management apps like OmniFocus. Here's an example OmniFocus project that represents the project I'm currently working on. You'll see that the project paths on the left here in OmniFocus don't map perfectly onto the paths that I use in the Excel spreadsheet. However, they're good enough for my time tracking purposes. There are in the default mySelfQuantifier workbook at this point a few different project tabs, project worksheets that are available to you. So here's how it works at this point. I've specified here a number of projects that I would like statistics about, and the top 4 rows here specify temporal information. So let's pick a date here in this, which is just a demo really. So the 4th of April, there's statistics about the project activity there, and you can look at this sheet here. Pause this recording if you'd like to correlate the information. So let's focus on this column here, which I will scroll over. Now, what happens here is you specify the project that you're interested in, and we're using Excel wildcards here, so you can tell by this the description with the star here, and the formula to obtain this information is specified here. Okay, you can dig into that if you're interested. And this basically specifies that I have worked a total of 9 hours and 33 minutes on this. Actually, it's just demonstration data. And I'm also interested in knowing how much time I've spent in a given day on my CogSci apps research. So that here ends up being 4 hours and 26 minutes. So it's a subset of this. And then I've got an app called My Sleep Button that I work on. Need to know how much time I spend on that because it can easily consume all of my time. We're also developing a new app, and I'd like to know how much time I spend on that. So this is recorded here, and so on. I've got a business called CogZest, so I want to see how much time I'm spending on that. So that's how much time I spent on that hypothetical day. I work on several books as under the CogZest umbrella, so they're noted here. I'm also a professor at Simon Fraser University, so that's a top-level work-related project that I put here. You know, I could also, if I was interested, keep track of how much time I spent on various personal projects. Here's an example, and this would get tabulated here. The star is important because if you don't add the star, which is a wild card, you'll get everything. Recently, I've been working on tax, so I'd like to see how much time I spend on tax projects for various. I've got my personal tax and 2 businesses, so here I just used stars, wild cards on either side to give me all my stats work. But again, this is just demonstration data. I'm also keeping track of how much time I spend in deep work. This marker row that I have here is simply convenience row for navigating, so I can quickly go with command right arrow. I can quickly navigate to a row of interest, a column of interest, I should say, which in this case is today when I'm recording this demonstration. So I see that, okay, well, I've spent, according to this demo, 43 minutes in deep work, and this tells you how much time I've logged in this in the various projects here. So I've worked. Notice I've worked this amount of time in the books. Well, it's 43 minutes. It makes sense that these numbers should tally up this way, right? So obviously this number here will always be bigger than this number and this number. And if you want to make sure that you're getting the right data, you can add a checksum, which is currently not filled out, but I've set aside a row here, which I sometimes use because this is, of course, infinitely tailorable, this spreadsheet. This particular spreadsheet gives you project information by day, but there are also summaries for how much time you spent in a given week, right? So here's 1 week, here's another week. I've also created a year-to-date spreadsheet within this workbook, okay? And the way this works basically at this point, it's just copying the project information that is specified in the previous worksheet. So this specify. This goes way back to the project by day. So if I change what I'm looking at here, for instance, I want to take away the star here and just get pure project information, personal project information, then my year to date, it will be reflected here. So let's do an update. Okay, and then that gets specified here. Of course, you're free to put in whatever paths you want. So why don't I just have a long list of paths specified here for all of my projects? Why don't I use a pivot table? Well, you can go ahead and do that if you like, but knowledge workers work on hundreds of projects, so it's just not feasible, not a good idea in my experience to list all of the projects. I just list the projects that I want to analyze at any given date. And one doesn't want to get obsessive about one's analyses, so you just, your needs to basically keep track of what you're doing change at different times, and this Excel is just about as flexible as and easy to use a system as you could ever construct.